Now I know you're thinking, what is this? Are we learning about camera basics or are we making a smoothie? Well, you know what? On this channel, nothing really sticks to its things or its goal object. Anyways, I just thought, for fun, let's make a smoothie. Now it's not a smoothie I created. It's not something that just popped in my head. This is a smoothie that I used to get at another place, but then I just realized how expensive it was. I guess it's like a protein smoothie, but also like a super green smoothie. Anyways, it's pretty much kale, peanut butter, bananas, pineapple. I do like 50-50. I didn't really measure it properly. Just because, whatever. Peanut butter, super green protein. You can get this anywhere. Sprouts, Whole Foods, wherever. Just pour that baby in there. Oh, yeah. You're just so confused what's going on. I just thought, hey, man, I used to buy the smoothie all the time, and I was spending a lot of money. So I decided for 2 cups, for 2 60 ounces, you would get this place. You can buy the same amount of ingredients for the same price. So, because they're like a 60 ounce was like $5.99. Get that twice, it's like almost like $12. All these ingredients pretty much cost about $12. Jar of peanut butter costs $4.99. Anyways, and that's super good in food. It says 2 scoops, but theoretically, that should be 2 scoops. My friend Kaylee and I thought about starting a smoothie place called Just About Right, where nothing's really measured. It's just the right amount of ingredients. I think the fundamental rule of smoothies is that if you want a strawberry banana smoothie, you get strawberry bananas. If you want more mangoes than pineapples, you put more mangoes than pineapples. That's it. But hey, not everything's great. I guess. But anyways, let's blend this baby up. Thanks a lot. All right, we're done. That was kind of annoying. I'm probably going to regret listening to this audio while I'm writing it. But anyways, put that baby right in there. Ooh. Like I said, there's a chunk. Kale, peanut butter, apple juice, pineapple, bananas, super green protein. It's everything you can ever ask for. Ooh, there's still some left. Anyways, Just About Right smoothies is really just about the right amount of ingredients in the smoothie. It's gonna be a hit. Trust me. That's some really good stuff. Definitely a hit. I will probably put this ingredient in the description down below if you want to try it. But, who knows what I'm going to make next on this channel. Maybe some toast. Maybe crepes. Ooh, I get a griddle and make some breakfast and teach you. Oh, dude. Ideas. Channel's about photography and food. Because, those are my 2 favorite things in the world. Anyways, I'm going to enjoy this smoothie right now. Hey, what's up? How's it going? How's it hanging? What's new? How's life treating you? It's hot. I'll tell you that. It's getting warmer. It's good because I am ready for warm-ish weather. Because that means I could possibly go camping. Who knows? We'll see. We'll figure out. I know what you're thinking right now. You're like, wait a minute. Did he switch shirts? No, I filmed the first video, part of this video, on a different day. I just forgot to finish the rest of it because that's what I do. I forget to finish things. But, hey, nobody's perfect. But me. But yeah, anyways. So I thought, I was just like, what's today's video going to be about? And I thought, what does every content creation / photography YouTube channel all have in common? They have a camera basics. What? That's what I'm doing today. Camera basics. I think I kind of was trying to think what is considered camera basics? What is something I guess I just put in a group of what people should know and how it works. And I thought about what the hell did not know when I started off. So I conjured up a list and put things together, and I think I made a good list. I only using 4 things because I feel like the other things, or maybe I could talk about them. Who knows? We'll go from there. We'll figure things out together. But yeah, we'll talk about camera basics. There's I feel like these are a few things that people should know and what they do and how they can change your photo. Let's jump right in. First one we're going to talk about is shutter speed. Shutter speed is pretty much how long the sensor is exposed to light. It's pretty much when you're opening that mirror back and forth. So the faster the shutter speed, the less light it's coming in because it's opening and closing real fast. And then the slower the shutter speed, the less light, more the light comes in. Sorry, I'm confusing the two. Shutter speed is kind of you'll see on your camera, it is shown as 1 over a certain second. And so you'll see 1/5 of a second, 1/4 of a second, 1/50 of a second. And like I said, the faster the shutter speed, the darker the image is, and the less motion blur. And then the slower the shutter speed, sorry, the slower the shutter speed, the more light that's coming in and more motion blur creating. When you're using fast shutter speed, that's like kind of if like someone is in a motion, like if for sports and for wildlife photography, like a bird is diving into the ocean, they'll use a faster shutter speed to capture pretty much that person frozen and just like a still. But some people do, like I know some people will take will use a slower shutter speed to kind of give that motion blur effect. And it's cool. There's nothing wrong with that. I like it. Because I think especially when they use cars, like when cars like are passing by, like a race car, it creates this crazy motion blur, and I love it. It's a really cool thing. Now there's a setback between using a slow shutter speed and a faster shutter speed. When you use a slower shutter speed, you're creating more light, and you're exposing your pretty much your image into more light, and it becomes brighter. Especially if you're using during the daytime, that's going to be an issue. And then when you're using a faster shutter speed, you're exposing it to less light, so the image can be darker. And this leads into what I'm going to talk about next, because this little buddy is like the kind of like the frosting to the cake for that. Is ISO or ISO. That depends how you pronounce it. Some people do it different. I always say ISO. Some people say ISO. It's a debate. It's still going on for decades. But ISO is pretty much artificial light that your sensor creates. And what it does is pretty much it sends a signal to the sensor to amplify pretty much the light signals. So for example, if you're using like a faster shutter speed, let's say like maybe 1/400 of a second, and you notice that the image is darker. So what you would do, you crank up your ISO to maybe 800 to 400. There's also a saying, it's called ISO relativity. Can I say that word? Relativity. Some words are just difficult for me to say. But that means is what your sensor is capable of handling. Of course, you can boost it up to like 64,000 and stuff. But yeah, ISO is pretty much what helps your camera amplify that the light signal, and does the opposite for if you're using slower shutter speed. I'm really having trouble talking today. If you're using slower shutter speed, what it'll do is actually it will decrease the signal into the sensor. So for example, like you took a photo and you had a slower shutter speed, but it's so bright. The next time you take that shot, reduce your ISO, and you'll notice a difference. And sometimes these two, like they're like they complement each other. They're there for each other. And I think some people kind of don't understand to always, when you adjust your shutter speed, adjust your ISO. Because it, like I said, depending on your moment, depending on what you're taking, depending on the light outside or the light inside, you have to adjust your ISO and your shutter speed. Astrophotography, if you're doing a slower shutter speed, so you'll do like maybe 30 seconds. Your ISO has to be cranked up because you want to see those stars, you want to see the galaxies, you want to see what you can't capture with the naked eye. So for example, if I took when I take astrophotography, I usually using 30 of a second. But my ISO is usually around like 64,000 or less, depending on like the situation. If we have like a full moon, if we have, a half moon. And those are things I do take in consideration of taking before I adjust ISO and shutter speed. My light, what is my source of light? But if you're doing stuff like you're taking, you've seen photos of people doing like the waterfalls and they look like foggy and misty. They're using a slower shutter speed, but they're using a smaller ISO. Unless you have like a ND filter, which kind of actually helps reduce the light. It'll actually do like a stop. And I'll get more into like ND filters and polarized filters later on and what you can do them for. That helps with, because of course using a slow shutter speed, you're exposing the shutter to more, the sensor to more light. And as much as you try to crank that ISO down, like you're still gonna have issues. So an ND filter comes in handy. That's how they mainly take those photos. But it's pretty much the same idea. You adjust your shutter speed and your ISO, because those they're each other's best friends. They go with each other no matter what. Two peas in a pod. I was trying to think of another fruit analogy, like something about pears, but I don't think that's analogy. But it's fine. Anyways, the next thing I want to talk about is Aperture. Aperture is pretty much, how can I say it? Aperture is pretty much like, if you ever looked in the camera, you notice there's these blades, and when you turn the dial, it'll open them wider or closer. So pretty much Aperture controls the brightness of the image of the light that passes through the lens. So you've heard like the way that Aperture is expressed by F number, or an F stop. So you'll see something that will say like F2, F3, F1.4. And then pretty much the higher the number in the aperture, the less light is coming in, and the lower the number of the aperture, the more light is coming in. And it does more, like, there's more to it. Like, it's not just creating light, but it also creates a different depth of field. So if I'm taking a photo of, I want to take a photo of both the camera and the mic, I'd have a different aperture setting. I would have maybe like an f3 or an f5 to capture both these in one frame. Because what happens is that when you go further down to like an f1.4 or even like an f3 or f2.8, what it'll do is it'll start to actually blur the background. And that's what we get, bokeh. And bokeh is like, for portrait photographers, it's like we love the creaminess of bokeh. And what it does is that it pretty much changes the depth of field. So now this is in focus, this is out of focus. So the higher the aperture, the more depth of field you'll get. The lower the aperture, the less depth of field you'll get. I could be wrong about that last part, because I think it's like the opposite. No, sorry, I'm right. Sorry, I was like trying to think about it. I was like, wait, is that true? It is true, because it's less light, creating more. You're not blowing out your background. But like I said, the lower the aperture is perfect for portraits. It's perfect for if you're doing like headshots. Usually I use like most of my lens, like the one here I use for this. I use it for a lot of fashion photography because it's a wide angle. The aperture is f2.8, and it's still good. Like, that's amazingly great for fashion photography and some portraits. One of the other lenses I use is my 85mm, which is a 1.4, and it's really great. It really it blurs out the background. It has a super creamy bokeh. And now you're probably thinking like, wait, what if I use this lens and like it doesn't have like, how do you know? I guess the way to determine the creaminess of a bokeh, and I know this is so off topic, but the more aperture the blades, the more smoother your bokeh is. So, for example, you'll hear people say, like, they'll talk about lenses. They're like, oh, this lens is a f1.4 35mm, and it has 11 aperture blades. That pretty much is like the creamiest of the creams. Like, it's as creamy as whipped cream. It is as creamy as custard. It is creamy as, what else is creamy? Creme brulee, like, that's what I'm saying. So, but aperture, and the same thing, aperture also coincides with like ISO and shutter speed. Those aperture can definitely help you, especially if you're filming. I know a lot of people who say that like the best way to get cinematic features is to use a lower aperture, slower shutter speed, and you adjust your ISO to create artificial light. When I'm using aperture, say for example I'm using a 1.4, I have to adjust my ISO because, like I said, the lower the aperture, the more light it's bringing into the sensor. So if I'm using a 1.4, my ISO is usually below 800, and my ISO is normally around 1 to 300 to 1 to 400. And it just depends on this, like I said, the light, your source of light. So if I was outside and I had a lower aperture, I'm going to, of course, use like a faster shutter speed and a lower ISO. And I think it's important to understand these three because these can change your photos. They can change the way your photos come out. Especially if you're doing architecture photography. I should have done vocal warm-ups before this because I'm obviously not prepared. But if you're doing architecture photography, you're of course going to use, your aperture is going to be open wider, and you're going to be using not open wider. Your aperture is going to be closed less because you're using a higher number. That means you're pretty much like that is coming in there, like the source of light pretty much coming in. And you're using a higher aperture, and because you want to create that depth of field, you want to capture everything that's in it. So then you have to coincide of adjusting your ISO and your shutter speed. So because that image is gonna be darker, you're gonna have to crank up the ISO. You're gonna have to lower your shutter speed. And like I said, there are things that help you, like ND filters, which I will get in. The ND filters pretty much will help also reduce the stop of light, they're like the sunglasses for your lenses, they're super cool. I used them before, especially when I'm like filming, because I have to use a slower shutter speed and a higher ISO. There's a lot to it. But I want to make sure you understand shutter speed, ISO, and aperture. One of the things I do want to throw in is white balance. White balance is not a lot of people. I feel like when you're starting off, a lot of people don't really take in consideration, but I think you should, because white balance is pretty much the temperature of the light. If you ever took a photo and you notice that like it looks really yellow, you didn't adjust your white balance to complement the hue of the sun or the hue of the light. I know when I'm in like what I've done photos outside where like it's near sunset, it's like close to the golden hour, but because it still hasn't reached like the horizon, it creates this weird yellow green hue. And knowing and understand how to adjust your white balance is important, because you can adjust it to either have a warmer source of light or a cooler source of light. And a lot of these things are found in your cameras. There's no cameras made differently. I want to say even the point and shoot ones you see are there. They even they're not so advanced like most cameras, but they're still there. They still have that option. As for shutter speed and ISO, I want to say they're still in the point and shoots, but mainly you'll find them in your in Sony's, in Canons, and Nikons, and Fujifilms, and Pentax. And these are things I feel like you should know about, because they're very helpful. They can change your way your image looks. I know for a fact, when I was starting off, and I really was focused on aperture because I would have it on the aperture setting, but I noticed my quality of my photos weren't that great, or there was a reason, for some reason the lighting was off, or it was too dark, it was too bright, it was this. So then I learned when I started using manual, I learned how to pretty much adjust my shutter speed, adjust my ISO, adjust my aperture, because it does change the quality of the photo. And it also changes the mood of the photo. If you're taking a photo of someone, and let's say if it's just a portrait, it's you want to do a portrait, you crank up that, you lower your aperture to a 1.4 or 1.8, and to blow out that background, so it's blurry. There's no one to focus but your subject, and you create put your good shutter speed maybe a good 1/250 a second. Let's say we're outside in the city and there's some sunlight, but you decrease that ISO, it's gonna give a good dramatic effect. But if you increase that ISO, kind of where it makes it very bright and beautiful, you're getting more of a pop vibe. So yeah, your shutter speed and ISO and aperture can also change the mood of your photo. Some people could argue different about that. They say oh, that's stuff that you can do post process, but it also, I feel like if you can conquer those three and your white balance as well, you can pretty much shorten the time in your post process. Unless you're doing Photoshop work, then by all means, if you're doing some fancy stuff and cool graphic designs and stuff behind it, then by all means you're not going to slow down your process, because Photoshop is a lot of work. But if you understand pretty much, I would say let's say if you understand all four of those, you can change the way your photo comes out. And then, like I said, white balance is something that I feel like you should know, but at the same time, not your biggest concern, because in post process you can change the white balance inside of it, inside Lightroom or Photoshop, which is super easy, nothing too difficult. But it's good to do it beforehand, because you can eliminate pretty much time spent in post process, because the faster you can get the photos out on Instagram, the more fire you can show people, and people are gonna start liking it, and people are gonna start commenting on it. Another thing, it just popped in my head, and I can't believe I just did not think about it. File format. Now I want to throw this in here because a lot of people always concerned about which format to use, RAW or JPEG. I think everyone I ever met has used RAW, and because RAW is pretty much, it's a bigger file, but there's more information to it. So if you took a photo and it was kind of dark, you can save that photo by adjusting shadows in your exposures, and you can bring that photo out. For JPEG, yes, granted, it is a smaller file, so you can use less of your storage space, but it's containing less information. And the reason why it's containing less information is because it's compressed. It's a compressed file. So it's pretty much taking out information. And if you ever edit photo, a really low lit photo on JPEG, in Lightroom, I've noticed that you'll get noise, which is something when there's not a lot of light, so it's because it's creating information that's not really there. And then JPEG is just I would say JPEG is mainly for posting stuff on Instagram and sending through emails or through text. That's the best. That's why I leave, when I convert photos, I usually convert them from RAW to JPEG if I'm sending them through a text or email. But idealistically, I think everyone should use RAW, because like I said, there's more information there. You can save a photo, even the most the most low lit photos, you can do your best to save it because there's more information in there. Granted, it is big, but that's why you get an external drive. That's why you get one of the lacy ones I talked about, because it can do so much. Sorry, I'm was trying to burp, but at the same time not trying to burp. Fun fact, JPEG stands for Joint Photographic Experts Group. Yeah, that's why it's called JPEG. Found that out by watching a video about JPEG because I was kind of curious, what it stands for. And it led me into this whole, black hole of YouTube of like JPEG and TIFF and PSDs and all other file formats that are super irrelevant, but at the moment. But you know, hey, fun fact. If you're asking what does RAW stand for, it stands for RAW. Just it's not an acronym. It's literally just stands for RAW. But yeah, I think these are just some of the basics that some people should take in consideration if you're starting off, or if you're kind of like, like you're in it, but you're also kind of like, you want to hear what I have to say, or what's the best way, or what, you know, what file to format. Because I know a lot of people were still like, there's some people who I met who are using JPEG, and I'm like, I mean, granted, there's always this big, huge like debate of what to use, but you know, but I hope this helped you, because I know for a fact, like, I spent a lot of time trying to figure out, you know, how Shutter, ISO, and Aperture, I'm like skipping through, like, I'm not even finished my sentences, and I keep cutting myself off. This is who I am as a person. But I know, like, when I started off, shutter speed and ISO and Aperture were the three things that I was kind of confused on, but at the same time, like, I wish it was in a way, like, I was told early on in what it was. So I hope this video helps you. I know it's quick. I have, like, a lot of stuff to do today. I'm slowly going, like, back into work right now. And I have a lot of cleaning to do because I, like, delayed a lot of my cleaning because I decided to be lazy, like, the past few weeks, months of my lifetime, or maybe in general. So I got to cleaning. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I don't know what I'm going to make for the next one. I really don't. I'm, like, trying to think I think I'm going to discuss about Lightroom. I think so. Maybe. I'm not sure. Sometimes I make my mind about something and then I'll completely change it last minute. And then next, you know, I'm producing something that's, like, unplanned, unorganized, and yeah. So, but anyways, thank you. I hope you enjoy. Like and subscribe. Let's kind of build this together, you and me. Let's start something. Anyways, cool. I'm gonna eat lunch because I'm hungry. I think I might eat ramen. I'm not sure. We'll see what happens. All right, cool. Bye.